Arts child trafficking ring.
That's the right profile. Thank you.
It was a joke, Plus. Don't don't take that the wrong way.
So apparently, yeah, there's this bug now or something. I'm just joined in two Hangouts at once with the same profile using the same browser.
Yeah, I was able to do the same thing. That was weird. That's not a bug. That's a feature, man. It's about time.
In a way, yeah. Right. All right.
So we're live.
God also want the link.
I sent her the link in the Skype.
All right. There we go.
What's the Hangout called?
What is the Hangout called? I don't know.
You make
these questions. It's called. I don't even fuck. Okay, so this is the old one, right? Oh, crikey. Okay, this is an old one, so I'm gonna delete this post.
Dex's Guide to Protractors. Volume 1.
I have no idea what it's called.
Dex versus the world.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah. Huh. That's weird. Okay, so I have that. I have a Hangout.
Just don't give the link to Stizer, please. Thank you.
I think we're full anyways.
I will pay you money for you not to give the link to Stizer.
All right, and with that accomplished, I gotta go take a piss.
Strength and honor. What you do in this life echoes in the next.
So, Goddess, what was the first thing that's convinced you that you know your position on Muslims? What's happened that made you think the way you do?
Well, I actually, when I first came to like Paltalk, I used to troll the Islamophobes because I thought they were just bigots. But then I started listening to what they were saying and researching it on the internet, and I realized that they were right.
No real life experiences, you know. You weren't like run over by a Muslim taxi driver or something.
Well, I had a Muslim stepfather that raped, sodomized me, and made me perform fellatio.
Right.
Now, is that true, or are you making up a porcupine?
What do you fucking think?
I don't think it's true.
Oh, that's a shame.
It's a shame that that's not true.
No, I was being facetious. So you're convinced by their arguments then? You were convinced by what the people were telling you and what you looked up?
Yes.
Okay.
It was a big change was upon realizing that mainstream Islam is what people consider radical Islam. And that there's really no such thing as radical Islam. There's just Islam. Like, somebody can be a cultural Muslim, you know, secular and peaceful, but they're not following the real Islam. Not what's being taught in mosques and what all four schools of Sunni jurisprudence Islam say Islam is. What the mullahs and the sheikhs and the imams and the leaders of Muslim countries.
All of them?
A lot of them will do taqiyya, so they'll say one thing to us, such as Imam Faisal Abdul Rauf, who is the New York City Imam. They'll say one thing to us in English, and then they'll turn to a crowd and say something different in Arabic.
Have you been to a mosque?
Yeah, I took Shahada in a mosque.
Have you been to every mosque?
No. Can you tell me where there's a mosque, where there's programs that are in place that are teaching against things such as death for apostasy?
Not off the top of my head.
Right, can you Google it and find one?
I could try. I don't know whether you believe it.
Well, give me a link.
I mean, you know, if you want to travel to Bristol, England, you'll be more than welcome to travel to the mosque there.
Right, have you ever seen
where there was,
from your country? You know, I'm very familiar with your country, G. Whistler.
Yeah, well,
have you ever seen documentary?
Hang on. Yeah, I know you're going to mention that, and let me just finish. Hang on, because that mosque was targeted by some idiots. Who decided
right. Well, there's also Undercover Mosque number 2.
Do I not finish? Or because that mosque, I was going to go on and say that mosque was targeted by people who decided that throwing pork sandwiches was a fun thing to do, which might sound trivial.
How is that relevant to what was being taught in the mosque, G. Whistler?
It's not entirely relevant, but I'm just going to say that the local community turned out and stood with them and made them feel very welcome.
Welcome when they're teaching our destruction in the mosque.
Well, there's no evidence that they were teaching it.
Well, they were absolutely. I watched the documentary at least 5 times, both of the episodes, and I watched and I researched the wiki.
That's a separate thing. I know about the documentary you mean, but I'm not talking about a mosque that was in that. I just put an example forward of
Undercover Mosque 1 and 2.
Okay. So I got a couple of questions. Godless, do you believe that death to apostasy is something that's taught in all mosques around the world?
Not all mosques, but I would think it would be very difficult to find a mosque in which they're teaching against it.
That's fair. And do you believe?
You know, over 80% of Muslims spewed by Pew Poll, which is one of the most reliable poll organizations. Over 80% Pew polled by Egypt in Egypt. Say that they want death for apostasy.
Okay. Do you believe that Muslims around the world generally adhere to what they are taught in the mosques?
Do they believe it, or do they physically adhere to it?
Do they do what they're told to do?
Physically adhere to it? No.
Okay.
Right, but many of them will are happy to sit back and just procreate, use democracy against itself, and wait.
Sure.
So there's many that will rise up against us once they get their numbers up.
Well, that's speculative for one thing, and
well,
rise
we've
up
seen
against
that.
us. If they have enough people to form a democratic plurality, then it's not rising up. It's simply democracy.
Well, you can use democracy to destroy democracy, but we have historical examples of this, and of course, there's already demands for Sharia. As their numbers increase, they'll only keep making more demands.
Well, when there is a critical mass of people, and those people ask for a different set of laws, then that's democracy.
Right. So you can use democracy to overthrow democracy.
Yes, you can use democracy to kill itself. Yes, you can. And
right.
that's
and we don't really see opposition.
But that's realistic for any circumstance, any similar circumstance.
There's no significant opposition to this in the Muslim community. So an example of, you'll see tens of thousands of Muslims coming to the streets to protest somebody drawing Muhammad, but when there's a protest, which there seldom is, protesting ISIS, there will be 12 Muslims.
That's not true. Those protests number more than 12, and they're not widely reported. And the vast, vast, vast majority of British Muslims are happy to live under the laws, under the legal system of the land.
Well, no, actually, G. Whistler, the media is very much on your side.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Oh, I wish it was, but it ain't.
The media won't even mention Islam as a problem. Every time a Muslim kills somebody, or a Muslim blows something up, or a Muslim runs somebody over, and as they're driving away, they're screaming Allahu Akbar, the academia, the politicians, and the media rush to the cameras to tell us it has nothing to do with Islam.
Why do you think
it's just
Well, I think what they rush to the camera to actually say, is that there are Muslims who,
Those Muslims don't represent Islam. That's what they'll tell us.
That's right.
Even
Because
though
they
they're
don't.
screaming Allahu Akbar.
Yeah, but that's great. But we have, does Westboro Baptist Church represent Christianity?
They're a fringe. The
Yes, they
Muslims
are,
who are blowing
precisely.
up are not a fringe.
They are if they don't. I mean, there are and I never can remember which country it is. It's either Indonesia or Malaysia, where there are almost 1 billion Muslims, and generally speaking, those people live completely peacefully.
You think that there's peace? There's not semi-Sharia law in Indonesia?
There may be Sharia law, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there's any of the barbarism that you're talking about. We never hear about it.
Right, so what happens to a woman who isn't wearing hijab in certain parts of Indonesia? What happens to a woman who is accused of adultery in certain parts of Indonesia?
Well, I've never heard of a woman.
Everywhere you have...
I'm going to answer you. I've never heard of a woman being stoned to death for adultery in Indonesia.
I think in there they were whipped. But
I've never heard of a woman being whipped in Indonesia.
Everywhere in the world that there's
significant. Can you point to me an instance of a woman in Indonesia being stoned to death for adultery or being whipped for disobedience?
I said
whipped. For being whipped for disobedience or being whipped for
actually for being raped it was. But
could you tell me where that is, please? Could you show
Indonesia,
me that?
Yeah, I can get a link. But everywhere in the world that we have significant Muslim populations, it's human rights disasters.
Human rights disasters, really?
Yes. Which Muslim majority country would you like to live in?
Would I like to live?
Yes.
I don't want to live in any. I don't want to live in any.
Practice your free speech in.
I don't want to live in any country other than Canada, but I don't think that's the point. Now, if you're saying if I had to move to a Muslim country, which one would I like to live in?
Right. Which one would you like to practice your right to free speech in?
Practice my right to free speech. You are more than allowed to practice your right to free speech so long as that right is not deemed as seditious. Do you know what happens here? Do you know what happens? Listen, I've had arguments with Muslims, flocks of Muslims here in Canada, over the rectitude of the Quran, the holiness of Muhammad. None of them have ever threatened me. None of them have ever called me an infidel or told me that I should be beheaded. You know what they've tried to do? They've tried to convert me. They've opened up the Quran and they've put their hands on my shoulders and said, "My brother, let us reason together. For the Prophet says, let us reason together."
Right. So for one thing, I'm not saying it's all Muslims, but also what the majority of Muslims.
But you act as though it's all Muslims. You act as though when you attack that Muslim woman with the milk, did you bother to figure out if she was radical or not?
That's a separate issue than the claims.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
I didn't claim to know that the Muslims in the videos want Sharia. They might be completely secular and harmless, and I was picking on innocent people. I don't see how that's relevant to the claims about Islam that I'm making.
So you're the terrorist.
Yeah, you're the one spreading fear, not them.
That's irrelevant to the claims I'm making.
It may be relevant to the claims, but I'm choosing to make it part of the conversation.
Oh, well then that's a separate conversation.
I don't intend to treat it as a separate conversation.
Well, it's two separate issues.
You can either have some courage and address that issue.
Right. So if every time I want to substantiate my claims about Islam, you want to bring up the videos, then I don't know what I could do about it.
I don't. First of all, that's a straw man. I don't do that every single time. As far as substantiating the claims about Islam, yes, the Quran says some very, very nasty things. Absolutely, it does. So does the Christian Bible, by the way.
Right. So that's also a separate conversation I can have.
No, it's not. No, it isn't. No, it's not, because you cannot condemn one religion while turning a blind eye to another religion's right.
Plus, I'm not here to defend Christianity, and I will have the Islam.
I don't care what you think you're here to do. I don't care what you think you're here to do. Yes, because you're attempting to shape the conversation in your own image.
I'm just saying it's separate conversations. We can have all of them, but there's separate conversations.
Yeah, you're attempting to shape the conversation, and you're attempting to lock out certain subject points. I'm
not. I'm willing to have all the conversations.
No,
I'm just pointing out that they're different conversations.
We need to lock out specific subject points, right? So
there are some subject points we need to lock out, Dex, but I don't think that's one of them.
I'm willing to have any and all conversations about Islam and my videos. I'm just pointing out that they're separate conversations.
Right.
So much of the time, these conversations get conflated with each other.
So what is the conversation that you want to have about what specifically?
Any of them. I'll have any of them. I'll let Gus choose as long as we stick to that conversation.
Okay. Well, that's fine then.
Let's
That's
have
fine
the
then.
Islam versus Christianity conversation.
Great. Go ahead and do that.
Concerning what specifically? So we need to pick a topic.
The Bible has writings that are every bit as bloody and open to misuse as the
Okay.
Quran is.
Yes, so you could argue that there's just as much as violence in the Old Testament as there is in the Quran, but you have to take into account that the Quran is much shorter. But so there's many points to this. For
How about
one,
the political point?
okay, well, Islam is political, and Christianity in its true form is also political, but Christianity has been reformed, while Islam is immune from reform for multiple reasons, and I can list them. For one thing, Christians find much more justification for cherry picking. For one thing, there's context in the Bible. Well, there's not context in the Quran, so they can say things that are metaphors, and the Quran is the eternal. The Quran has always existed. It's the eternal word of the Creator of the universe, while the Bible was dictated through men by God. So there's room for interpretation. There's room for interpretation in the Bible, while the Quran is literal. There's many Christians who do not take the Bible literally, and they can have justification for that. Also, Christians can justify not going out and attacking non-Christians because they can just sit around and wait for the rapture. While anybody who says that a central message in the Quran isn't to wage war on the non-believers is lying, or they haven't read it. We have Jesus versus Muhammad. So Jesus is much more meek and mild than Muhammad. In Christianity, it's what would Jesus do, and in Islam, it's what.
We're talking about the Old Testament, so let's keep talking about the Old Testament.
Well, we said we were going to have a conversation about Islam.
Well, you were the one that brought the Old Testament up first.
The Old Testament is part of Christianity.
I mean, if you're going to do the old, well, okay, go ahead.
Right. So in Christianity, it's what would Jesus do, and in Islam, it's what did Muhammad do. In Islam, Muhammad was the perfect man, and you won't find me a Muslim who will say Muhammad wasn't the perfect man. The best Muslims follow in the example of the Prophet Muhammad. Now let's compare Jesus to Muhammad. Muhammad was a warlord, a pedophile, a rapist, a capturer of sex slaves, a pillager, preached deception, practiced deception, wrote treaties. Ordered women, so an example is Muhammad ordered a woman to be stoned to death for adultery, while Jesus picked up that fucking stone and said, "Those without sin cast the first stone." Would you like to respond to anything I said?
The length of the Quran has nothing to do with anything. Let's just push that out of the way.
Well, I said because you could argue that there's more violence in the Old Testament than in the Quran, but you have to take into context that there's the Old Testament is much longer. So of course it's different that there's more violence. But also Christianity has been reformed, so the real Christianity barely exist anymore. It's a fringe. What's being taught in churches around the world and Christian leaders is very different than what's being taught by Muslim leaders, Muslim scholars, sheikhs, mullahs, and imams. Okay,
the fact is that any religion can have a reformation. All right, Christianity, before Christianity was reformed, nobody would have believed that Christianity could be reformed.
Right, but I can give you multiple reasons why Islam is much more immune to reformation than Christianity is.
No religion.
For one thing, okay, so for one thing,
I'm sorry, I reject that out. First of all, you've already given a number.
I can substantiate it. I can substantiate it.
No religion is immune to reform.
I said it's much more immune to reform than Christianity, and I could substantiate that.
That's great, but my point is that no religion is immune to reform. And just because one religion seems to be resistant, highly resistant, or immune to reform from the outside, doesn't mean that it can't be reformed. It doesn't mean there cannot be factions. It doesn't mean that there cannot be internal strife. My point behind saying that is that Islam is no more a monolithic juggernaut than Christianity was before it. It just looks like it is.
Okay, so in Christianity, there's much more diversity. There's 41,000 denominations, 30,000 sects, and there's room for interpretation. While in Islam, any Muslim who says let's not take the Quran literally is guilty of hypocrisy or apostasy, which is punishable by death. Which is why it's very difficult to reform, and which is why when we see Muslims in Muslim countries advocating this, they're either killed or kicked out of the country. The Mutazilites tried to reform Islam in the 11th century. They were wiped out.
Right. And?
Hey guys, question. So there's a guy out there who says he's a Muslim. He'd like to join this conversation. Is there anybody that's willing to make room for him?
Yeah, I'll make room. I need to go out anyway. He can take my space.
Cool. Appreciate it.
Cheerio.
Thank you. Sorry, guys. Go ahead.
No, if at the minute the Islamic fellow comes in, I wanna cede my time to Godless because he's he's eminently better suited to discuss that matter than I am.
Right. So we'll see. The problem with talking to a Muslim is that there's the doctrines of deception. So there's taqiyya of the pen, jihad of the pen, jihad of the tongue, and taqiyya, kitman, and tawriya, which are all different kinds of deception, which Muhammad practiced and preached.
In the end, if two people are in a room and one points to the other and says they're lying, the only thing that the listeners can do is decide for themselves.
Welcome, Ashok.
That there's the doctrines of deception. So there's taqiyya.
Okay, we can hear the hangout. Shut the hangout off.
So Ashok, you got to turn off the YouTube feed that you're watching from, or wherever. Do you have a mic?
Oh man.
Yeah. Hello.
Yes,
You have to turn off the. You're listening to the hangout as you're in the hangout. So.
Welcome, Ashok.
Yeah. Thank you for.
Ashek, you
Hello?
have to cease listening to the hangout. You're hearing a lag in the signal because you're listening to the hangout externally while you're in the hangout now.
Do you have a mic?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Oh, sweet Christ.
Chris, I don't think he heard you. Maybe
You're in the hangout?
maybe say it again.
Yeah. Thank you for.
Ash. Oh, fuck me running.
He's new. Right. So, Godless. There we go.
Yeah, but
I'm not here to defend Christianity. I think that Christianity is detrimental to human beings, okay?
okay, well, here's
But I
Ashek.
don't think that Christianity is a threat like Islam is. And I
Haven't been
see
to the
this
South.
political correctness amongst atheists. So the atheists will, now they're right, they have the Constitution on their side. So we'll do things like the Freedom from Religion Foundation and American Atheists, that organization, take Christians all the way to the Supreme Court for doing things like putting up crosses or calling a Christmas tree in public schools, singing Christmas songs in public schools. But yet, there's National Hijab Day being in public schools, where non-Muslim teachers encourage non-Muslim female students to wear hijab. Now imagine the outrage among the atheists if there was National Wear a Christian Cross Day. Ramadan is being celebrated in the White House, and kids are getting off of school for Ramadan in New York City. Well,
So
the atheists
Christmas-
are silent about that. Well,
Christmas
atheists
is-
are
Christmas is
complaining
being
that Christmas
celebrated.
is a national holiday.
Yeah, but Christmas is being celebrated in the White
Right.
House.
And atheists are complaining about that.
Are they?
Atheists are complaining that Christmas is a national holiday.
I think what atheists want is that if
There is a war on Christmas.
no, there
And
isn't.
I'm
a
not
war.
saying that atheists are wrong.
There is not a war on Christmas. Have you been to Rockefeller Center in New York? It looks like fucking Christmas detonated and blasted its guts
Gus,
all
I'm
over
not saying that
Rockefeller
the
Center.
atheists are wrong, okay? Such as the 9/11 Miracle Cross. So the Christians pulled this metal
Nope.
cross beam out of the rubble on 9/11
There
and
is no
wanted to
war
put
on
it into a Gus.
There's no war on Christmas. I mean, when you make these statements and then you try to shuffle off to Buffalo, I'm
Okay.
going to go back and dwell on the statement.
Okay,
that you
well
made.
they're having a problem with with teachers using the term Christmas in public schools, and I'm not saying that they're wrong about that.
That's
All I'm saying is if a
that's
teacher-
anecdotal, and it's nowhere near as much as people are trying to say.
Right, but if a teacher is to say Happy Ramadan in school, the atheists would be silent.
What the atheists would want is that if you're going to observe a religious holiday, you have to observe them all.
Gus,
That's-
what about
that's-
National Hijab Day in public schools? Why are the
That's
atheists silent?
what did I just say? The atheists have said if you're going to observe a religious holiday, you have to observe them all.
Well,
I mean,
Well, it's not a holiday. National Hijab Day is not a holiday. It's non-Muslim teachers telling non-Muslim female students to wear hijab for one day in school. Imagine the outrage of the atheist community. Come on, don't deny this now. Imagine the outrage if there was National Wear a Christian Cross Day in school. If you deny that that is inconsistent among the atheist community, you are being very dishonest.
Of course.
If it is as you say, then there is something wrong there. But the problem is ultimately what ends up happening is that this shit gets filtered through. It's often anecdotal. The specifics are often misunderstood. And people go flying, and people go,
I beseech you to Google it, Gus.
And people go flying off the handle for nothing, or you've got an entire, this is the United States does, when it comes to education policy, the United States does not speak with a single voice, okay? That's part of the reason why you have different education standards in different states. There isn't one, yes, there's a National Department of Education, but, it doesn't mandate what goes on in all schools and all places and all boards. It doesn't mandate what goes on in the private schools. And so every now and then you get people with funny ideas, okay?
Just notice that you feel this impulse to defend Islam and question where that comes from.
It's what I'm not defending. I'm not defending.
What have I said that's not true? What have I said?
How about you let people finish? You were just crying a few minutes ago about people cutting you off. How about you let someone finish for once?
Okay, go ahead.
Actually, what I would like to do is I'd like to cede the floor to the Muslim gentleman who just came in.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah, Shek, do you wanna chime in on this? I know your mic was working earlier.
While he gets his stuff figured out, there's been some misunderstanding about what World Hijab Day is. If you actually go to their website, there's a picture right here of a Holocaust survivor that's invited a woman to speak about her culture, and she's wearing hijab. No one else in this picture is wearing a hijab. And I don't see anywhere here where it says anything about encouraging other people to wear hijab. It actually specifically says, for many people, the hijab is a symbol of oppression and segregation. By opening up new pathways to understanding, Nazma hopes to counteract some of the controversy surrounding why women, Muslim women, choose to wear the hijab.
Dragna, are you denying that non-Muslim...
No, I'm not done. You were just crying about people interrupting you. You were just crying about that. So I see nowhere on this website. This website is worldhijabday.com now. This is the organization that's supposedly perpetuating this idea. Where on this website have you found that they're trying to encourage people who are not Muslim to wear the hijab?
Right, so I don't know what website you're talking about, but are you denying that there are non-Muslim female students being encouraged to wear hijab for National Hijab Day in public schools?
I have not seen any evidence of that. I am on their official website. The people who promote this, I am on their website.
Okay, I haven't been to that website, so I don't know.
Why wouldn't you go to the website of the organization that you're talking about?
I didn't know it was an organization.
Where are you getting the information from?
I'm just talking about non-Muslim female students in public schools.
Where did you get that information from?
Right, so do you guys want me to take a minute to get some links?
No, you just tell. Actually, in this case, I think you could just give us a general idea. Was it a non-mainstream news source? Was it an external blog? Was it CNN, MSNBC?
It definitely wasn't a blog, but hang on a second.
Okay.
Well, what's interesting is that while I was in the military, here I go again, you actually learn a lot, and a part of my job was to learn about Muslim culture, the difference between Sunni and Shia, the different languages, and different things about the culture. A part of my job was actually to simulate one of these individuals who will be living in this country, so I had to act the part, along with my primary focus of being a combat medic. And so along with that, we have to take specific classes, and one of them was geared towards understanding certain cultural norms and the dress. It is obligatory in some places, but not all places. It's more like it's encouraged. You won't really see too many women getting their heads ripped off if they remove the hijab, unless they're in some place, of course, like Saudi Arabia. Now, Indonesia is a really interesting place because my buddy, Richard Pavlat, you can go look him up on Facebook right now if you want to. I served with him. His wife is from Indonesia. I have never ever seen her put on a hijab. She doesn't wear the traditional Muslim headgear. She doesn't wear anything traditional that would be considered traditional for a Muslim. He met her while he was a U.S. contractor in Indonesia. So there's not this ever-present danger like, you know, it is in, you know, Iraq somewhere, or Syria. There are different places that actually have very different cultures. So while people like to come on and pretend that they actually know stuff and they don't do the research, I find it really funny because some of this stuff I've lived through, and it doesn't matter. I've told him I don't like religion. That's not my thing.
What do you think
I've been mad. I'm still talking. Thank you. I'm still talking. Within all this, I can still have the temerity to try and learn about something that I don't like in order for me to criticize it accurately. And I think that's what very, very, very few people are actually trying to do nowadays. Now I'm done.
Okay, so what
Okay,
do you
I'm sorry. How
disagree
is
with?
anything that you just said inconsistent with anything that I said?
For one thing, Indonesia is not some radical Muslim territory.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Indonesia is not some crazy, wild Muslim territory. It is actually
What did I say
a pretty
about
laid-back
Indonesia
place.
that's not true?
Did you not a few minutes ago, when you were speaking to Gus?
Right, one of the things
that
I said about
Indonesia-
Indonesia is that in some parts of Indonesia, it's obligatory for women to wear hijab.
You said some places, or did you say Indonesia?
We can rewind the tape. I said some parts of Indonesia.
It's okay. That's fine. That's fine.
Okay, so what did I say about Indonesia that's not true?
Okay, that's fine. Let's
Okay,
continue.
so how is anything you just said inconsistent with anything that I've claimed?
Okay, actually, you misrepresented World Hijab Day, but other than that, you
no, I
pick something else?
didn't. I'm
Yes,
getting
you
the
did.
link right now. I'm getting the
Okay.
links right now.
Okay, so you got a link that's not from the actual
You went to
organization.
one website. You
It's
went
not-
to
I
one
went,
website.
No. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. I went to the actual website of the people who promote this. These are the people who founded it and promoted it. I'm not going to any other website other than straight from the horse's mouth. Why would you go
that
to any
website
other?
doesn't say it, that means
If
that what
you-
I claimed isn't true.
If you have
I can
some
get you the
fringe,
links.
if you have some fringe organization that says that they're a part of them, then sure, why not? I went straight to the people who actually perpetuate.
I don't even. You haven't even given me the link. I don't even know if that's what I'm talking about.
WorldHijabDay.com.
Yeah, that's not what I'm talking about. World Hijab
Okay.
Day. That's not what I'm talking about.
Okay,
That,
what are
that-
you
that,
talking
that
about?
wasn't necessarily Godless's point. Godless, correct me if I'm wrong in representing you here, but what she's saying is that there are instances where atheists and secular people will allow for Muslim culture to be represented, for the religion to be represented in public places where they would be outraged if the same thing was happening for Christianity, for example.
Exactly.
I'm sure that there is, but in the main, most times that I've seen atheists speak, they either want all the religions represented or none of them represented.
Yeah,
I mean, if I look hard enough, if I lift rocks and look hard enough, I can find all sorts of people with all sorts of opinions who've done and said all sorts of things. The question is preponderance. That's the question.
Right.
You know,
So like for example, prayer, public gymnasiums and schoolrooms being used as prayer rooms, and as segregated prayer rooms on top of that.
Okay, so I have a link.
Closet to go
Okay, I have a
pray.
link. It is okay. So it is called World Hijab Day, but this is I don't know what their website says, but nothing that their website lacks to say is inconsistent with anything that I've claimed because I was talking about it being put into practice in public schools. So this is actually from my home city, Rochester, New York. 13 Wham News, which I used to watch all the time in Rochester.
out there by Irondequoit, the Irondequoit Mall.
Oh, Irondequoit is a suburb of Rochester. So here's the link
The
to
Greenhouse of Guitars.
non-Muslim female students being encouraged to try on hijab in public schools. Imagine the outrage of atheists if non-Christian students were being encouraged to try on Christian crosses in public schools.
I'm sure there would be atheists that are completely outraged. I'm sure there would be. But
Okay, so what does Dragnut think of that?
The constant problem that we run into here is that you're attempting to say that all X is Y.
No,
I mean, imagine,
that's a separate conversation.
Yes, no, it's not. You're attempting
Isn't
to
this a
say,
separate conversation?
You have said that if you have made a blanket statement that if schools wanted kids to try on Christian crosses, the atheists would be upside down and backwards. I am conceding to you that there are probably a group of atheists who would be upside down and backwards, but it's not all of them. And one of the endemic problems of this conversation, and it's getting worse as the conversation goes on, is that we're essentially trying to paint groups with single brushes. And
I was
this is a
speaking
problem.
about the atheist community generally.
The atheist community generally would say either all religions are represented or none of them are represented. And in addition,
look at the atheist organizations, the Freedom from Religion Foundation and American Atheists. Look at their Supreme Court cases. Millions of dollars spent taking Christians to the Supreme Court, which they're right, they have the Constitution on their side, for things like putting up crosses.
Oh, I see what they're doing here. It's not about religion.
Mm-hmm.
If you actually read that article, it's actually talking about the social stigma that's carried with it. It's a cultural thing. It's just like having. Let me finish. It's just like when we had soldiers wearing jeans one day out of the frickin' year to represent all the sexual assault that's going on in the army, and that's just like the same thing with a walk a mile in her shoes. It's an effort to point out social stigmas. It's not religion.
Okay,
and
right.
They actually say that in the article.
Okay, I have to go in a minute, but I'll just respond to what he said. So the hijab, by definition, is an Islamic head covering. So by definition, it's religious.
Actually, is it worn by all Muslims?
That's not relevant. You said it's not religious.
Wait. It's not relevant.
It's not relevant. No.
No. Wait. Let me respond. He's saying it's not religious. It's cultural. But by definition, the hijab is the Islamic head covering, the religion of Islam.
But once again, you keep trying to portray...
whether or not all Muslims wear it would be irrelevant to whether the
it does matter
is an
because
Islamic head covering or not.
You keep trying to portray Islam as a singular force of overthrowing Western democracy. And the fact is
I'm just responding to what Dragnet said. I'm just responding to what Dragnet said.
The fact is that
I'm just responding to what Dragnet said. I'm just responding to what Dragnet said.
Right.
I'm just responding to what Dragnet said.
Godless.
I'm just responding to what Dragnet said.
Let Gus finish. He's just going to make a quick point.
The fact is, if some of them do different things, that means they will not all behave in lockstep. As a matter of fact, if large groups of people don't do the exact same things that they're supposed to, large groups of people may not behave in lockstep. And then where does your theory of jihad go? Any old fucking way.
Gus, how is that relevant to National Hijab Day being put into practice in public schools, being religious?
Well,
it's not religious.
It's not religious. Gus, do you agree with him that it's not religious? The hijab, the Islamic head covering?
I'm going to read what the principal actually said. Now, the principal is Sheila Webster.
Does she say the word hijab, which is Islamic head covering?
How about you let me finish, and I can tell you, and we can talk about it afterwards if you calm down.
If I hear the word hijab, that means it's religious.
Okay.
They can claim it's cultural.
Can I just read the quote? Can I just read?
Yes, they can claim it's cultural, but if it's a hijab, it's religious.
Can I read the quote?
Honestly, to tell you the truth, Dreadnought, I think we kind of both know what's going to happen, right?
I know.
The principal is going to claim it's cultural. She's going to claim it's religious.
By definition, if it's a hijab, it's religious.
At this point, it just becomes a question of what you believe, right?
By definition.
I believe
it
just becomes. You know what? When it comes to a religion that billions of people practice, there is no such thing as everybody does X.
That's irrelevant to a hijab by definition being religious.
Do non-Muslims wear the hijab?
No.
Yes.
No, it's called something else.
Is it called a hijab?
No, it's not called the hijab.
Is it called a hijab? Hang on. Is it called a hijab when a non-Muslim wears a scarf?
No, there's Hindus and Christians and fucking Russians, some Russian shit that wears a head covering, and it's not called hijab because by definition it is an Islamic head covering.
If a Christian woman goes out into the streets of Tehran without her fucking head covered, then she gets it. She is expected to wear a hijab, even though she's not Christian. So the Coptic
Christians in Egypt are forced to wear a head covering, but it's not called hijab.
But that's a cultural thing, and it is a hijab.
No, it's not. The Coptic Christians in Egypt, the Coptic Christian women in Egypt are forced to wear a head covering because if they don't, they'll be fucking raped.
Gus, can you let
They can call it something different if they want to, but that doesn't stop it from being a hijab. It is functionally a hijab, and they wear it
Let
because
Godwin finish.
they wear it. They wear it because it is a cultural thing there that you do not leave your head uncovered to tempt men. That is culture.
No, it's an Islamic thing that if there's a Muslim majority, such in Egypt, and a non-Muslim woman goes out without covering her head, that she'll be raped.
So
That
here's
doesn't mean that her head covering is Islamic.
okay. So I actually
That's why in Egypt, the Coptic Christian females call their head covering something else than a hijab, because a hijab is an Islamic head covering.
Okay,
You
so-
fucking idiots.
So there's examples. I've found examples of non-Muslim women calling it either. Here is someone calling it a headscarf. There's another photo that I can turn to in a second that's going to call it a hijab.
That's irrelevant.
What did
Okay.
the public school that was doing call it?
Hold on.
They called it a fucking hijab. I'll be back later.
So the point is pretty simple. The hijab is a Muslim concept, correct? There can be head coverings, okay? So if a woman in Saudi Arabia, for example, is wearing a headscarf, okay, she's wearing a headscarf. Okay, but why is she wearing that headscarf?
Dex, I think that's silly. If let's say a Muslim got caught in a traffic accident, okay,
Right.
and he's lying there, and I took his keffiyeh, okay, and I put it on my head. I may not be a Muslim, but I've taken a Muslim's keffiyeh and put it on my head.
What are you wearing now?
That means I'm wearing a keffiyeh.
That's right.
Whether I like it or not, I'm wearing it. Why? Not because it was consecrated by a Muslim, but because it is a head covering of a certain shape and size. I could buy a brand new Jewish yarmulke from any number of shops that would sell such a thing. There's a couple of them here in Ottawa. If I put it on my head, it's still a yarmulke. I may
Correct.
not be a Jew, but it's still a yarmulke. Well, then how the fuck can that be any different for something like a hijab?
It's a yarmulke because it is defined as a religious Jewish head covering, right? If you just put a piece of cloth on your head, then you have a piece of cloth on your head.
But all a hijab is a triangular piece of cloth.
Correct? So
That's all it is.
it is an item that is specifically identified as a religious symbol.
Okay, but all it is in reality is it's a square piece of cloth.
I don't think we can just boil it down to just one thing. I don't think anything is just one of something. It's always I don't see how that, because I can use it as a napkin. It can be a napkin.
Then it's a napkin, right? But you're still using a hijab as a napkin, right? What did it start with? What do you identify it as, right?
A cloth.
Okay, so if you put a cloth on your head, right? Then there's no such thing as a national head on cloth on head day, right?
Sure.
Okay, so
Okay, but she's
we're trying to identify a religious symbol, and I don't think it's a cultural symbol. I think it is clearly a religious symbol.
I mean, I can only go by what the folks are saying, because it's not a part of every Muslim's culture. That's the thing. It would honestly have to be universal in order for it to say, well, this is just that.
Do all Christians wear crosses?
No, they don't have to. That's not something that's mandated.
Exactly. So, but are all crosses Christian?
No.
Echo.
Damn it, Jack.
Christ
Pick a
almighty.
hangout. Oh wait, he's not even broadcast. Who's doing that?
That's not him. No,
Oh,
I think it's.
Multi-Jack.
Oh no, wait.
Jack.
There's two of them here. Yeah, Jack.
Oh.
Jesus Christ. You know what? If Darwin sneaks in, he sneaks in. You can go get him later.
Yeah. Right. So, if you have a cross that's identified as a Christian cross, it's a Christian cross, right? I mean, it's just the way it is. And it is identified with the culture. It is identified with Christianity.
Here's the problem I have with symbols. Symbols can mean anything to anybody, and that's why I didn't get into the whole rebel flag, Confederate flag debate thing. Because you're not going to tell somebody what a symbol is, because they're going to have their own meaning. That's what symbols are. That's how they operate. And then Godless Girl can see what she wants into Islam, and I'm going to see what I want to see into it. But at the end of the day, I don't think anything is just one-dimensional. There's always different layers to something, any type of object that we perceive.
Yeah, but I think we can generalize some of the things.
Of course, yeah. I mean, for this, they're not. There is the essence of, yes, this is a religious symbol, but the point of World Hijab Day is not about its religiosity. It's about the culture and the cultural stigma that it brings with it. And I think that's sometimes being missed. That's just because it's just like the walk a mile in her shoes day, where grown men put on high heels. It's not about them becoming effeminate. It's about them pointing out that, well, there is difficulties in the United States and other places, you know, to be women in some instances. So I think that's sometimes missed.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of nuance to it. How do you guys feel about the prayer rooms in schools?
Well, I really don't mind if they want a place to go chill. Then they should be able to have that. You know, it's a place to just kind of decompress. I can't really say anything because there are now many veteran-only areas in universities. There's actually a surprising number of them, and so I can't sit here and in one breath and say no, I don't agree with that, and then I have open access to a veteran-only room. You know?
Well, Drag, this isn't a room.
I wasn't aware that veterans was a religion.
Well, no, it's just a special class of people.
It's important to note that this isn't a fellowship room. This is a prayer room. Okay, and I know that Dex lives in the Toronto area, and I don't know if he's heard about this, but one of the problems they were having with a lot of Muslim students, particularly those, you know, first wave immigrant Muslim students, was that on Friday afternoons, or in sort of last period afternoon for prayer, they used to fuck off from school and go pray at the mosque, and then, you know, come back. So one of the things that was done in order to keep them on school property where they could be, you know, watched over and looked after, was to build them a prayer room. But that's not like a rumpus room. You get in there, there's supposed to be somebody leading a prayer, right? You get in there, you get on your knees, you get on your face, you stick your ass in the air, you do what you're supposed to do. Like that's not a chill room for them. That's a prayer room, and it's there specifically to keep them from leaving school grounds to pray in another mosque.
Right.
Because they're going to do it anyway. And, you know, particularly in Toronto, where there's an enormous number of new Canadians that come from Islamic countries, you can't, you know, you can't even begin to start considering saying, well, you know, you have to stay here or we're going to suspend you. I mean, that would just be insane.
Why not?
You'd be suspending half the school population.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, everybody else has to play by these rules.
Yeah, except that remember that most school boards are elected positions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, I know you want to be a tough Russian there, Dimitri, but
they would be signing their own resignation with that, even though, you know, everyone should play by the rules, but they know better.
Okay.
So they're going to offer concessions.
We are giving secular space to religion, paying for it. So I don't really understand why we ought to give this concession to Islam.
We compromise about a lot of things in Canada. I'm surprised that I have to explain to a Canadian about cultural compromise.
Well, why ought we compromise on this specifically?
Well, because it keeps kids from getting fucking hit in traffic accidents when they're supposed to be in school. It keeps kids from deciding that, you know, if third period in the afternoon or if second period in the afternoon that they have to go to mosque anyway, they might as well just cut third period and go home. Which
right,
makes
but that's
worse.
The parents' responsibility, right? It is the parents that are making him do that.
Well, you go ahead and make all those parents make them do other stuff, and we'll wait.
So it is a cultural issue, right? They come to Canada, they refuse to adopt to our cultural norms, and we are obligated to bend to their cultural norms.
The Second Nation came to Canada and refused to adapt to the First Nation's cultural norms. Why do we think this is such a thing?
Right, and we put them on reservations for that.
And what do you think is going to happen to you?
I think that statement is a non sequitur, and I think it definitely avoids my point, Dex.
Well, no, it doesn't avoid our point. Like we said, no, our way, or you go on a reservation. They chose the reservation.
Well, we may have to choose our own reservation. Let's mark out Toronto quick.
That's the issue, though, isn't it? So we are setting up our own reservations.
Well, the problem, unfortunately, is that if you disrupt the education of a bunch of Muslim kids by forcing them to choose between a secular education and what is that noise? What is that noise?
Joseph,
a secular. You're forcing them to choose between a secular education and their religion.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, you're going to create an underclass of people because, I mean, quite frankly, if you spend all your time being suspended from school, you won't get to fucking finish school. And if you can't finish school in an increasingly information-based society, we're going to end up with an underclass of people who very soon will tell us that they're an underclass because we hate them racially. When at the end of the day, we just wanted them to follow the same rules as everybody else, which will be an even bigger fucking problem down the road. Might as well just build them a damn prayer. I mean, look. Listen, you went to a high school, I went to a high school, everybody here went to a high school. How many people went to a high school where there was at least one room that nobody was using for fuck all?
There's lots, yeah.
Yeah, so just take one of the fucking rooms, block off the windows, have a bunch of mats there and have them pray. They've got the room anyway. We might as well just honestly, I understand that in an ideal world, these people would pray on their own time, but that's not how it works. And unless you want to create larger problems down the road, or worse yet, you end up having all the Muslims going to Muslim schools, which, yeah, the Catholics do it, but the Catholics are homogeneous enough with the rest of us that we don't tend to import Catholics from upper Smaboobili land who don't understand Western culture. Most of our Catholics tend to be homegrown. So them having their own separate schools isn't necessarily, in many ways, the Catholic system is identical to the secular system, with the exception of the fact that there's a chapel in there.
Exactly, right. So I mean, I don't really agree with the Catholic system either. The fact that it exists, like you said, it only exists because it's homogeneous to the country, right?
That's a constitutional thing. Actually, we wrote it into our national constitution that the Catholics would have. Either the national constitution or the Ontario constitution. I can't remember which one, but since no province matters a fuck but Ontario, anyways, I don't care. So
yeah. But I am always cautious of these kind of concessions to any religion. I mean, I don't agree with the Catholic system. And I definitely don't like the idea of making concessions for specific religions within a public school. The problem, though, is, of course, like you said, there will be a lack of integration if we do not make these concessions.
Yeah.
Right. So at the end of the day, that is hopefully our goal.
Well, this is it. I mean, the best way to learn that Takaya doesn't really exist is to grow up around Muslims like you and I did, Dex. When I went to school, there were the Muslims, West Africans, Hindus, Sikhs. I mean, we learned not to fear the Sikh kirpan by going to school with Sikhs for fucking 16 years and never once pulled their kirpan out. That's how we learned. And this whole notion of being an Islamic supporting atheist, just because I'm an atheist doesn't mean I have to be antagonistic to other religions. It doesn't mean I have to say that that other religions are somehow fucking verboten just because I'm an atheist. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I say let men worship what gods they will, as long as they don't try to make me do it. Anyways, I'm the only one talking, so. While Dex is eating his po' boy. Or Dragnot's eating his po' boy.
I fucking wish. This is the shittiest fucking guru that I ever had in my life. But you know what? That's all I can get.
It's hot and there's plenty of it.
Yeah. Like Godless girl.
Oof, I don't even know. Well, yeah, I mean, you know, so I mean, the face of education in this country has bigger problems than whether or not we have prayer rooms. I'll tell you that for nothing. And the same thing in the States too, by the way.
I'm very aware that there is a culture clash, right, between the Islamic world and the Western world. And I frankly feel a little bit nervous about making concessions to that culture because I really do think that it is a different culture and it doesn't necessarily jive with what we have, with the democracy that we have. Yeah, I find problems with that.
Traditionally, what happens is that if you take very hot water and mix it with very cold water, what you get is warm water, right? So what we will likely see going forward is a hybridization of Canadian tradition and non-Canadian tradition, which has been what has happened for
as we have seen
as long as it's gone on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not necessarily worried so much if we, you know, I think we can guide this into you know, to something productive, and I don't necessarily think that a prayer room in a school is the hill I want to pick to fight.
Yeah.
I would much rather enshrine a woman's legal right to choose a burqa. You know, if she wants to wear one, fine. If she doesn't want to wear one, fine. I think there's a lot of. I would much rather enshrine prohibitions against female genital mutilation.
Of course.
Now, mind you, everybody's going to get mad at me because I don't think that circumcision is male genital mutilation, but I'll accept that rage.
Well, actually, I think there's a few people that didn't like the idea that I am like I don't like having burqas in certain areas or any kind of head covering for anybody, especially in airports and around government buildings. If there's surveillance and you want to go in these facilities, then you have to remove your headgear. Everyone has to. Doesn't matter if your religion says you need to or not.
You know what I think we need to fucking hurry up and hurry up and finally make 100% fucking effective or as close as possible is retina reading technology. Because frankly, you know, if you can make a portable, reliable retinal scanner, I don't give a fuck what the rest of your body looks like. Stick your peepers against the hole there, and there you go. And now the burqa is predicated on the fact that most of your body needs to be covered, but your eyes are allowed to be uncovered. You make a law that says that you can't have a burqa that covers the eyes. You know, you get your optical reader there to make sure that this guy's peepers are attached to this right person, and there you go, done. You know, I would much rather do that because honestly, you know, forcing a woman who willingly wears a burqa to get out of a burqa is, in my opinion, as fucking oppressive as forcing a woman who doesn't want to wear a burqa to get in one.
Yeah, I disagree with Godless's sentiment that Islam is some sort of a sneaky political ideology that's out to take over the whole world, and that somehow it is resistant to Western culturalization.
Well, the simple fact is they don't need to be sneaky. They're you know, the brown people, the black people, the red people, the little yellow people, they're all having more babies than the white people. So they don't need to fucking all they need to do is wait. That's it. And you know what? I don't have a problem with that. I have no problem with that whatsoever. So they'll get what they want simply by waiting a couple of generations, because there'll be more of them than there are of us. You and I, Dex, we'll be shitting in a little pot that's on wheels that we push around in the fucking old age home. And all we're gonna care about is whether or not episodes of fucking Married with Children are on. That's all we're gonna care about. And whether or not they're serving fucking real steak in the mess that day. That's it. And I don't mind that because that's the way it goes.
Well, hopefully we can culturalize them to our point of view.
We will up to a point, right? At
Yeah.
some point, you know, like for instance, 20, 30 years from now, you'll walk into a McDonald's, and there will be a halal menu, and it will be knitted seamlessly into that, you know, like that sort of thing. So
We actually had that in our DFAC when we were out in the field. The cooks didn't know how to and the folks out there didn't trust our cooks to make stuff halal, so we had to invest. I say we, the U.S. government had to invest in halal prepackaged meals, and there was a few of us that actually tried them, and they're pretty fucking good. I like the halal little strips of I'm not sure if it's steak or something like that, but it's fucking delicious, and I was actually surprised. You know, it's little stuff like that. It cost us a bit more, but you know, it kept them happy. The only thing I just wish is that contractors would stop shitting in drawers, or shitting in plates, and then hiding them in drawers and out in the hot desert. That was not nice because we had to go clean that up.
Oh dear. Really?
They wouldn't go into the porta potties for some reason. I mean, I'm guessing it's late at night and it did get cold out there and dark. So rather than go to a fucking porta potty that's, you know, 40 feet away from your housing area, you just shit in a fucking disposable tray and put it inside of a little cabinet where you're next to where you're sleeping.
Ew. Oh dear.
Oh, dude, I could tell you stories like
gross.
fucking rat dens in the shipping containers. They could call them connexes, and we made them into little houses, decorated them, get little windows, and there would be like piles of debris that the little desert rats out there would make for their nests, and they would just sleep across the fucking nest, you know, from the rats like it was nothing. So that was always odd to see a bed and then look in the corner, and we have to go and disrupt the nest to make sure that they don't come back to it, and then clean out their shit that they, you know, forgot to take with them back on their bus back to the base.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's disgusting.
Oh yeah. Oh, I tell you, we chased a llama that got loose.
Llama.
Yeah, we had the.
Somebody mistook it for a short hairy camel. It's like a
Yeah.
Shetland. It's like a Shetland camel.
Well, if you go on YouTube and you type in NTC, and I want to say it was Medina Wassel, you'll see where I used to work, and they'll have some videos. Actually, let me see, Medina WASL, and it should show you the market area. It's Medina Wassel dancers. Let me see if they show the contractors. Yep. Okay. So it's the contractors, but it doesn't show the marketplace. Yeah. If you type in MEDINA space WASL, Medina Wassel, that's where I used to work. And all the shit blowing up, and yeah, it's pretty cool, but it gets old after a while.
Oh wow.
Fucking, I'm looking at an article in the Beaverton, which is like the Onion but for Canada. And it says Ontario to lower the debt by selling Windsor on Kijiji.
Nobody wants that.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't buy fucking Windsor for all the money out there.
What have they got? A water tower? Is that?
I think so. Yeah.
That's the
Really
standard
shitty
green
looking.
doors.
Some really shitty looking apartment blocks.
Oh my goodness.
I don't show any of the marketplaces. Okay, yeah, they do. Yeah, you have to go to the one that says Fort Irwin, the Box, NTC National Training Center, USA. Yeah. This motherfucker's just walking through like it's nothing. Oh, I don't miss that. It was so shitty. I'm sitting out there in the fucking desert for 18 days. Well, now it's 18. I think it used to be 14 days, so like 2 weeks. And before you go out there, you have to take what's called the co-class, and you learn about the culture around there, and then you learn a little bit about Islam, and you learn about you learn odd things. You learn there's a few of them out there that know English well enough to tell you a fucking story. And so it's funny to hear Godless Girl going on about with the lying thing, taquito, taco grande, whatever it was called, and it's partially true, but it's more of a cultural thing in, I want to say, Afghanistan, where they exaggerate everything. So if there are, let's see, if you ask them are there any IEDs out to the next town, some information that you may want to keep you alive. Hey, oh yeah, thousands. There's thousands everywhere. Yeah. Oh, I see. We saw 1,500 guys, and they were all out there. They were walking lockstep, and of course, they won't say it all like that, but they'll exaggerate, and they'll be like 5. There's 5 out there. So.
Why do they do that? It's just
something it's just a cultural thing. Like they just exaggerate shit.
Makes the world seem bigger up in the mountains.
I guess so, man.
The valleys of Afghanistan.
It's funny to hear. It's like, okay, so you have to kind of take what they're saying with a grain of salt, because some of them or most of them aren't very literate, and they just kind of tend to exaggerate things, and that's it makes things a bit more difficult. But it's just one of those quirks, I guess.
Huh. It's an interesting cultural trait. Oh, man. Sweet Jesus.
Yeah, we actually had the Tyco unit, the translators basically, and there was the equivalent to like the Godless Girl level of antagonism that kind of goes on, because there were certain cultural differences with how folks were being, how we were interacting with them, and because for us, who are born here, like we have a certain decorum. There's certain space for like personal space, and then there are just things that we understand. And so for a lot of the Tyco guys, they're somewhat older, and they're not really that acclimated into the military culture to the point of understanding that when somebody who may be younger than you but has more rank than you tells you to go do something, you need to go fucking do it. And that's something, of course, we all have to learn, but that's something that's completely foreign to them. And so there were different little comments, being made, culturally insensitive comments being made, and so there was a meeting of such that we in the TMC, the Troop Medical Center, had to go through a class. This class consisted of, it was basically a cultural sensitivity class, where we learned about different religions, different cultures, and we all had to what do we do? There's a whiteboard in the waiting room, and we all had to write down our religious affiliations or lack thereof. And so we had Muslim, we had Catholic. One of my sergeants was a Wiccan. I put atheist on there, and so they had different categories, and someone put Wiccan under non-believer, and I had to erase it and put it over into its own category, which I conveniently labeled pagan. And so it was a very interesting and enlightening experience, but it highlighted the differences that's out there. So I'm honestly just talking to make conversation.
Well, interesting thing. Different cultures treat that whole idea of seniority different, right? Because apparently, like for example, in Asian cultures, like if you go to Korea and Japan, if you're older, you immediately have sort of more status, no matter what, right? You're treated with a certain amount of respect. Malcolm Gladwell wrote a really interesting article about this, where basically it had to do with airline safety, right? And it had to do with the fact that, like for example, like Korean Airlines had a terrible track record of accidents, and they're trying to figure out why. And one of the reasons for that was because the co-pilot was considered, in their culture, was subservient to the pilot, so they couldn't question them, right? So if the co-pilot saw the pilot doing something wrong, it was actually inappropriate, culturally inappropriate, to tell them that they're doing something wrong. So there was technically just one person in the cockpit rather than two, which makes things safer, right? They actually had to retrain people from this, and it did improve their safety record. Hey, Darwin's. It actually did improve their safety record. And same thing happened with like Latin airlines, apparently flying into places like New York. So if they're from a Latin American country and they hear a female from the tower, right? They were actually less likely to listen to her and take orders from her. And this is life and death, right? There's like hundreds of planes up in the air at the same time around the New York airports. So this was life and death, and these people actually had to be retrained in order to avoid the near mid-air collisions that were happening, because these people were less likely to take orders from women.
Strange.
Yeah, but you do see this. I mean, like I travel to Latin America often, and you really do see this. You like women are treated with far less respect, and if you're the jefe, everybody calls you Don, so it's like Don Dex, and they will not tell you if something's wrong. Like you can tell them until they're blue in the face. Like, listen, if there's a problem with X, Y, or Z. Like let's say they're building you a shed, right? And you're like, okay, this is what I want, but if you see a problem with this shed, with this construction, please let me know, okay? And they go, yes, see Don Dex, no problem. You come back, they build the shed, and the roof is freaking crooked and has a hole in it. And I asked them, why did you build it that way? This is the way you told me to build it, Don Dex. And I'm like, but didn't I tell you that if you see a problem, like a hole in the freaking roof, you ought to tell me. Well, Don Dex, I just thought that maybe this is the way you wanted it. Do you want a hole in your roof? But it's like it's a waste of air to actually explain this to them. Hi, Jack, how are you? Oh, I gotta broadcast you.
Yeah, I mean it's like I said, it's a big cultural difference. What I mean, there could be 50.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead, Jack.
I'm okay.
Cool. Yeah. The cultural differences. You wouldn't think that this is the case. It's a big deal, but it can be a really big deal when it comes to doing things like I'm sure being in the military. Like people have to all be on the same page, otherwise you're in trouble, right?
Yeah, there's actually what's it called? There is a circumstance where you can be removed from service within like 90 days, or actually 180 days, which actually does happen. Yeah, 180 days, if you can't get the hang of the military lifestyle. Once you get to your first unit, after your basic training, after your AIT. And you don't know that you're supposed to show up 15 minutes prior to whatever your first line tells you to go, or show up in the right uniform, not addressing people in the correct manner. It's called a failure to adapt, and it's honestly failure to adapt to the military culture, and they can remove you. Fortunately, we don't have that here in civilian land, but it is something that is very real, and I've seen it. I've seen a guy who he could not get his shit together. He could not make the transition.
So it does happen, eh?
Oh yeah, more often than people think. It's just people are so used to, I can't even say it's the older guys. sometimes it is just younger guys who they come out of a bad situation and they've never been able to really find peace with the environment around them, and so the military is dramatically different than anything that they've ever been in, and so they just struggle, and it is get kicked out. Sometimes it's the older guys because they've survived to the age of 30-something in a first world nation, which is really hard to do nowadays, and you can't tell them anything, and so they figure that they can just do whatever they want and it should be acceptable, and that's not the case. I'm sorry that you were a manager at Target and you had some 16, 17-year-olds bowing at you every fucking beck and call. It doesn't work like that here, Chief. So
yeah. Oh yeah. Well, it's I'm sure the military is like a huge change when it comes to people, sort of in structure and lifestyle and everything. But the same thing happens. For employees too. Like I'm used to manage clubs and bars, and you could tell, as I'm sure you could tell when it comes to soldiers, right? Whether a person, like almost right away, you can tell whether a person's gonna make it or not behind the bar, or there's just certain traits that don't get me wrong. I think pretty much everybody can be trained, pretty much everybody. But for some people, it is like 10 to 100 times harder, right? And of course, as any institution only has so much resources to train people properly, so you simply have to give up on some.
Yeah, I mean, it's not for everybody. Military's not for everyone. College isn't actually for everyone. And it's just, I don't begrudge people who go out and try, because at least they have the strength within them to challenge themselves to say, well, you know what, this may not be for me, but I'm going to give it my all and I'm going to see. And it may just be that they don't have enough life experience to know themselves well enough to make that transition into this new field, whatever it may be. And sometimes that happens.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man. So we've got Jack and Phil here. Dragnut, are you following MK's deliberations?
I looked at it a few times. I think I commented on it, and Ozzy and Matt commented on it and said, what did he say? Oh, you can't falsify an unfalsifiable God, and we were like, what? Like it's pretty much saying P is P, okay? That you gave us the definition of unfalsifiable, and then said it's unfalsifiable, and then there are some people still talking. I muted the post. I said no, that's enough. He's kind of gone off the deep end.
I think it may seem that way. I just don't think he has all the dots connected. Let's just put it that way. He's sort of like he's diving in the deep end with this.
Well, he is, but the thing is certain statements that he's made that is kind of worrisome. He doesn't want to learn too much about science. He doesn't want to learn too much about philosophy. He doesn't want to learn too much about religion. He's in a weird spot where he doesn't want to learn too much in order for I have to talk to him in order to get the explanation, but he just has this aversion to actually learning anything. And he just kind of goes with what feels right and what seems plausible rather than what would lead someone to a more rational conclusion.
Yeah. It seems that he has trouble connecting a lot of things, but it's interesting that it's actually sort of allowing the discussion to happen about epistemology, and Ozzy was chiming in, and I remember Jack was chiming in, and Cliff was in there trying to explain it to everybody. So it's funny how this topic comes up like every 6 months or so, and there's just like this frenzy of discussion about what we know, what we believe, and then it's sort of everybody gets bored of it and dies down. Just like there's the moral discussion every 6 months too, and there's a lot of conversations about it, and then things die down.
Yeah, it goes through swings when there's new people, especially.
Yeah.
They're coming and testing the waters and like fun shit.
Yeah.
But I wonder if I should. I guess I spoke to Skylar Fiction yesterday in private hangout.
Oh yeah.
So, there are plans for a collaboration between himself, me, and JD Kane if we can get him on board.
Like you guys gonna do a boy band or what?
I wish. Call it Ultimate Sexiness. Just basically, I have my show on Wednesdays, Just Talking Shit Tuesday on Tuesdays. So basically, the staging ground for the week from Wednesday to I don't know, next Monday. All the stuff happens, all the conversations, including the one on my channel. Skylar Fiction gets a snippet of the highlights, either before or after Talking Shit Tuesday. And Talking Shit Tuesday, where we talk about and do our deliberations and just shoot the shit. And so all three of us will kind of feed off of the content of the other.
Oh, nice.
That's the general idea, because I know a lot of people like the Skylar Fiction would take the best chunks of Hangouts and then just put his little captions and stuff on it, and how bad it would piss off Veckel, even though he would include like all the context of everything said, and then Veckel's still upset because highlighted it, and I think Veckel knows that what he said was stupid, and in retrospect, and so him blowing that up is like, this guy must have it out for me.
Yeah, Veckel is so easy to provoke. It's not even funny.
Well, it's certain things. Well, yeah, I think it's certain things with Veckel, though, and I understand that. I just think that, when someone highlights something he said that's stupid, and then he kicks himself in the ass about it, he's like, man, there's this guy who just made it 10 times worse. And so, yeah, but with true empiricism, it's just, you could just tell him he's mistaken about something, and he goes through the fucking roof. Like, he is like, oh, man, I was actually surprised at how angry he gets. And there's no build-up. It's just,
It's just 0 to 60, eh? No, I haven't seen that, so that would be nice. The 3 channels to follow, huh?
Yeah, we're gonna see if we can make that work. I'm pretty sure JD Kane will be all on board for it. So, Skylar Fiction actually came. It was his idea, so I'm more than willing to contribute to it, because I really do miss his videos. Shit, that's very
Doesn't Skylar want to move away from Great Debate? That's what I heard him saying.
Yeah, and that's what he was saying, is that even though he said he was going to move and try to move on, since the Great Debate is like whatever, no one wanted to kind of go and talk. I think he wanted to talk about more social and political issues, but there wasn't really a big audience for that, so he's kind of stuck with just talking about this shit. And so
right.
Understand, dude. There was a time, an early Talking Shit Tuesday, where we said, how about we make this informative, and JD Kane would give his hand at philosophy, and we have maybe Floyd do biblical critiques. People didn't want that. People come to hear us talk shit. 120 something live viewers every week want to come hear us talk shit and make fucking dick jokes. So, like, give people what they fucking want. Like, whatever.
Right. But the thing is, this needs to be within the context of it. It has to be within the context of the Great Debate still, though, right? Because the dick joke, so it's like, on the back of people like G-Man and Veckel and et cetera. So I think what you guys need to do is sort of get together and maybe make a strategy, sort of, like, what is a good way to make, G-Man or Veckel, like make traps. Okay, so you just go into the Hangout and you already have a preset topic that you introduce to them. That's bait that is gonna make them say really, really stupid things, as if you need to anyways. But it helps when you already have it when you already have it planned.
Well, I mean, there's always something that you can say to G-Man to set him off. It doesn't take much. If you ever notice our interactions, I say very little to him, and he just goes off the roof. And I found little things to say to him, and I'll mute my mic and I just let him go, and I'll just sit here just like this. And he gets so pissed, and the more silent I am, the angrier he gets because he wants me to engage him. And if I say, you know what, G-Man, I'm just gonna let you speak because the stupid's just gonna come out. So here, I'm gonna mute.
Yeah.
And he loses it. I mean, fucking loses it.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I mean,
it's entertainment. What can I say?
it is, and that's what, and I've said that. It's like I do provide entertainment for folks, especially folks like Bob, who's he's on the road most of the time. He's just listening. He needs something to listen to and keep him entertained. There's folks at work like Christopher Malty. He's at work right now, and so he's just tuning in and watching the stupid stuff. So it's like, well, hey.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man. Yeah. I don't know. I don't really follow too much of the science and Evo debate topics, but I know they happen all the time with Cliff and what's his name? Who's the other one? Fiona and what's the other gentleman?
Steve McRae.
Steve McRae. Yeah.
He and I want to do a series together, and just focusing on the basic level chem, like intro to bio kind of realm, and we need to get somebody that knows fucking graphic design. It's like Photoshop and all that fun shit. So I think he's studying up on like organic chem and some mathematics as far as the calculus involved, and I'm not sure really where we've just talked about this and like, we really do need to get this going because there are a few people who said that they want to try and follow along with what we're saying. If we're talking about phosphodiester bonds, what are we talking about? Just, when we're talking about the shit that Ronnie fucks up, very few people know what he's fucking up because you have to understand that the molecules that we're talking about are created, like the proteins. A protein is made of an acid. So saying that it's something going to dissolve in an acid is fucking stupid. It is an acid. It's literally an acid. Like it's like saying that what is that guy? Like Iceman. Like they're saying like you can freeze Iceman from the X-Men. Like you're not gonna freeze Iceman. That's why it's funny because that's the equivalent to what you would be saying. And so people can follow along a bit better, we wanted to create a more comprehensive, I guess, little like short videos, so that people have a general idea of what's going on. Because, mind you, there's like a ton of shit that actually goes into these conversations. How the inorganic molecules mix with the organic molecules then shape themselves, can contort themselves and coil and fold and pleat themselves, and how two stereoisometric molecules will interact with one another, as one being left-handed and the one being right-handed, and how they interact within the organism, and that shit gets fucking complicated. So we're not going to go to that level of it, but more of, hey, here's why this drug from this company has this effect on you, and this one doesn't, and vice versa for your fucking twin, so little stuff like that.
You definitely need illustrations if you're going to be talking about this.
And I'm actually going to take a page out of Tommy's book, where he feels that, and Tommy's actually said this, he feels that scientists use big words to keep people like him out of the conversation, out of academia. Like he's said it on my channel, and he openly admits that is something that he believes. And I said, that's fucking stupid, Tommy. I can't describe a cell to you without using the language that is in the field. It's esoteric to this topic for a reason. I can give you examples that will be somewhat close, but you really can't capture something as dynamic as a cell with all of its emergent properties by using simple analogies. You just have to understand it for what it is, and I think that's the hurdle for a lot of folks understanding this field. Because, like, let me show you. I'll get some of my my cards for you, my flashcards, and I'll give you an example. So.
You have flashcards.
Yeah, my wife bought them.
Oh, awesome.
I'm not sure what she bought them for, but she bought them and I took them. So just with a protein flashcard here, and on the opposite side, I have to know that this is an organic molecule. It's comprised of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and usually sulfur. And it is comprised of the amine group and the carboxyl group. Now, that is something else that you have to know. This, NH2, is the amine group. And where's the carboxyl? So you have to know a bit of chemistry. That's carbonyl. There's carboxyl. So this protein here is actually made out of a COOH, and as well as this NH2, which is the amine group and the carboxyl group, which is honestly two hydrogens bonded to a nitrogen, and one carbon, two oxygens, and a hydrogen.
Hydrogen, yeah.
And
Damn.
so then you have to understand how these proteins are made. They're made inside the cell, inside the nucleus, which is actually a housing unit. And inside the nucleus, you have the nucleosis, which creates the subunits known as ribosomes that create the proteins, which then go on to, so it's just every layer stacks upon it's the next layer. And trying to understand all of this is cumbersome. I'm not even going to fucking lie. I have notes written on my refrigerator here in dry erase marker of all the functional groups that I need to memorize, along with the organic molecules that they correspond with. So, that's why I kind of have to sit and just laugh at folks who think that like ID is actual science. Like, no, I should be more charitable. But if I wasn't sitting here learning actual science, I probably would be a bit more charitable. But I really can't. I can't apply these emergent properties to someone's fucking case of apophenia where they just want to see patterns where they fucking choose to, because it's convenient for them. Jack, something going on?
Well,
Jack?
you don't actually have to know anything about biology to understand that intelligent design is not actual science. It doesn't make any predictions at all. So there's no way there can be evidence for it.
Well, what they put forward as a prediction is pretty funny. And actually, it goes right along with the falsification for it. And I've heard different versions of this, but the latest version that I've heard is that the way that the predictions for intelligent design is that you'll find intelligent design organisms. And so the way you falsify it is if you don't find intelligently designed organisms.
But it doesn't predict anything of the kind.
Yeah, it's utterly worthless. And it causes me to laugh because I can't even put into words how weak of a prediction that, well, you're going to find something that was designed. Well, we have to first find out what is design, what is, especially what is intelligence, what do we consider design, what are we not consider?
But you don't even have to go into that. The point is that an intelligent designer might choose to create absolutely anything. So it doesn't follow from the hypothesis of an intelligent designer that we should expect to see any phenomenon at all.
Yeah.
Every phenomenon is equally consistent with the hypothesis.
That's right. You need the specific attributes of the designer. For example, he likes everything in yellow. And then
you could say that if there was a designer that preferred yellow things and had the capacity to realize his desires, that you'd expect to see yellow things. That hypothesis there could be evidence for, but those hypotheses are always ad hoc.
Hmm.
Nobody has ever come up with an intelligent design hypothesis that isn't ad hoc, predicts novel facts. That predicts facts other than the facts it was designed to, the hypothesis was designed to explain. So that's why intelligent design seems like a hopeless enterprise. Just ask Darwin's deity, right? He can't tell you anything that the intelligent design hypothesis predicts. So when he says that there are good reasons to believe in intelligent design, he's just simply lying. All you have to do is ask, what does the intelligent design hypothesis predict? And, he just has to go walk the dog.
Well, I mean, I made a video recently to True Empiricism, and I said, hey, I got to write 3 research papers this year. I'll dedicate 1 to evolution and the other 2 to Fiona and Sam. So my first research paper will be on evolution, and you can challenge it by making a paper for intelligent design, and we can let the people decide for themselves.
So generally, what they attempt to do is they attempt to disprove natural processes, right? That nature can.
But you see, they could disprove the hypothesis of universal common ancestry. They could disprove every mechanism, every naturalistic mechanism that is currently accepted. Like whatever, genetic drift or epigenetic mechanisms or whatever. They could disprove all of that. And none of that would even be the slightest evidence for intelligent design.
Is EF here?
Well, he's hiding because he knows that if he opens his mouth, he's going to get slaughtered.
Well,
so he's just sort of sitting here pretending.
If he does, I will make you guys behave. Okay, we do have.
Well, I'm not going to do anything other than present arguments that he can't answer.
He won't talk while Jack is here.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a coward.
Well, why did he join? Did he not know you were here?
He probably didn't know before he came in that I was here, and he's probably bored.
Oh, he's probably listening though.
Yeah, he's probably listening. Listening and getting very angry that he's being humiliated and doesn't have any recourse by which to respond to what's being said about him.
Oh, speaking of which, who made that fucking list?
I made it.
You made that? That's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
Someone told me about it, then they sent me a fucking link, and I was like, no. And then I saw Gus, and he picked the one at the top, and he lost his shit. I was like, are you serious? Like, there's a list of questions someone won't answer? How childish is that?
Oh,
and actually, the list has to be updated because Darwin's has said so many other ridiculous things in the since that list was compiled a year or 2 ago, whenever it was, that I really need to put in like another dozen questions that have come up since that he's also dodging.
Has he ever answered any of them?
Well, I don't think he won't really engage with Jack, right? So that's.
Well, he won't engage with anybody who asks any of those questions. I mean,
that's ridiculous. So wait. There can be he wants to talk to people, and talk to people, whoever he wants, whatever topic he wants. But there are certain questions he won't answer, and certain people he won't talk to.
Well, that's just what he does when he knows he's going to lose, right? If he's debating somebody he thinks he can win against, then then he's willing to debate. But if he thinks he's going to lose, he'll say, "Well, you're on my troll list. I'm not going to address you any longer," or he'll just leave.
Well, to be fair, you guys do pile up on him pretty quickly if he's ever in an open room. That's one of the.
No, it's even if it's one-on-one, even if I'm the only one in there,
right.
he'll start throwing a tantrum. It doesn't have to be 5 of us.
You two do not get along. I know that.
Well, it's not a question of not getting along. It's a question of him knowing that he can't debate me, and therefore constructing a whole bunch of excuses for his failure to answer my objections.
It's so funny. G-Man and I have gone at each other for years. We have been on YouTube for fucking years, and it's gotten hot and heavy. Matter of fact, his cohort Veckel actually threatened me with physical violence. If he'd ever see me in the street, he said he'd break my glasses and make my nose bleed, which I thought was funny. But still, that's pretty serious, just for a conversation. But still, he and I can talk.
To give EF some credit, I think that G-Man is just too stupid to know how stupid he is. Well, Evolution Pulse is above that.
Well, being above stupid is not really an accomplishment.
No, but that's true. G-Man doesn't understand his own ignorance.
What are you saying, Godless Girl?
I'm saying that Evolution Pulse
is know that he's too stupid to answer our objections.
No, Evolution Pulse does know that he can't answer the objections.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. You're saying he's smart enough to know.
Yeah.
That he is clueless.
But G-Man's not.
Right. Okay.
2 degrees from stupid. Conscious.
Yeah, that's why it's actually interesting. That's why it's actually interesting to debate Darwin's deity, because Darwin's deity actually has the sense that he's being embarrassed. He realizes that there are objections that he can't answer, but there are people like Nephilim Free who can't even understand that they're losing.
Oh, no, he'll make up stuff.
It's no
Nephilim
fun
Free will
to debate
lie.
people like that.
Have you seen him make up something in the middle of a conversation?
He's never embarrassed. Well, I mean, Darwin's deity will lie at the drop of a hat. I mean, he's no stranger to lying. He's a compulsive liar. But the point is, he understands that he's losing, and so he'll find an escape route. That's why there's that whole joke, about the dog walking. Because that's the standard ploy when he's losing.
I forgot who originally said it, but Darwin. So he's a green belt, and he's afraid of other green belts and black belts, but he only likes to attack white belts.
I've seen him have decent conversations with people. Generally, though, it has to be one-on-one.
The last conversation I saw, Dex, was a conversation he had with Scientist Sam. Did you catch that one?
No.
Scientist Sam. Yeah, Darwin had a conversation with Scientist Sam. So one of my first times talking. Well, it was funny. So Darwin was doing his thing, and I came in, and I had a few words with him, and he tried his hand at science, and I laughed, and so I went and told Scientist Sam, hey, come watch this. And so Scientist Sam was like killing himself laughing at some of the things that Darwin was saying. And so Scientist Sam came in. I said, you know what, I'll leave, And I took a back burner to Sam, and mind you, Sam's a PhD student. He's way above my level of knowledge as far as biology. I turn to him for shit. And so Darwin's is questioning him on his credentials because Sam has to keep correcting him on all the things that he's saying. And it turned eventually to a pissing contest where Sam had to keep qualifying his statements and giving his background and his research and what he's done, while Darwin wouldn't even tell us if he's a fucking, head cashier at fucking Shoney's.
Darwin's has no education at all. I mean, I'm not even sure if he's
graduated I could tell.
high school.
Wow.
Yeah.
He makes dentures.
That's
true. He can't even read a book. I mean, he can't even finish a book. He can't even start a book. I mean, all he can do is watch YouTube videos because he has just terrible ADD.
We'll see. Sometimes he'll name drop Thomas Kuhn's book.
Yeah, he'll name drop, but he doesn't know anything about what Thomas Kuhn is arguing. He just has a few catchphrases that he's read about Thomas Kuhn, and he'll repeat those, But if you start questioning about it... Sorry, what were you saying?
Was he in this hangout earlier? Was he speaking, or what? Has he fallen silent, or is he just was he just never talking?
What, Darwin?
He knows that if he opens his mouth, he'll get slaughtered.
Yeah, you guys, this is a bit of a hostile environment. I doubt that you can. And that's sort of one of the things that's.
It's not about a hostile environment, Dex, because he'll go into a den of lions on Paltalk as long as he thinks the room is full of white belts. So it's not about hostility. It's about whether he'll win or lose. He doesn't care about whether people are hostile to him. In fact, he thrives on hostility as long as he's winning.
Well, how about this? I'm in a calm mood. Darwin's, if you want to chat about something, we can. How about that? I'm being very nice.
You know. Who's here? Okay, so I mean, there's me, Jack, Justin, Realistic, and Godless Girl in there. He knows he can't be any of us. I don't.
Well,
think...
no, I think he considers me his equal.
Oh, really?
Arch nemesis.
Let's see if he'll debate Godless Girl then.
I'll debate him.
None of us will. All of us will mute our mics, and we'll just watch you handle Godless Girl there.
How about that, Evolution False? Jack won't say anything.
If we can, well, I think we could arrange for that.
Yeah.
But,
I've debated him multiple times. Well, like in his room on Pal Talk, I'm allowed to go in there. Well, most Jack's crowd is banned, but I'm not allowed to take the mic. He stays on mic, and I'm only allowed to type in text.
Sure.
Wait, you can't speak, but only he can speak?
Right.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Is there a reason for that?
He's a coward.
The reason is that Godless will embarrass him if she's allowed to speak.
Wait, he requires censorship so that he can I'm sorry, it's coming from my background, that's indicative of a certain type of person, and it's
indicative of a complete lying phony. I mean, he's just a charlatan.
Well, how about this? Well, it's even playing field. We'll all mute our mics and just let them talk. I would rather see Godless Girl at like the head of a TSA administration in like Houston somewhere, but I think this would also be very very entertaining.
Yeah, so it's really simple, right? All of the things that Jack is saying, they're empirical hypotheses like anything else. And the longer you stay silent, the more confirmation for Jack's hypothesis exists. I'm happy that this is live too, because then we can show what a coward you are, right? We can have it recorded. In fact, I have a whole list of links where you've been humiliated in the past, and this will just add to them. But I guess it's less humiliating to just be a confirmed coward over again.
Considering what we have here is just an avatar of a person who may not even be around, okay? You guys have been talking about this person for the last 30 minutes. There is a little bit of there's a little bit of like unhealthy attitude. Let's just put it that way. A little bit
I don't know. What is unhealthy?
Obsessive compulsiveness towards somebody. All right. Some sort of love.
Supposed to be.
Well, believe me, Evolution Pulse is just as obsessed with Jack.
I agree. He tends to go off and ramble off about Jack, and the problem though is that Jack talks about him, and then Evolution False talks about Jack. You guys never engage really. I've only seen you guys engage once, and it was a good engagement too. Yeah, like EM's hangout when Ozzy came in at the end too.
Yeah, well, that was a good engagement, and it was an engagement in which Darwin's fatally miscalculated in thinking that he could engage me without getting completely trounced, and he has since been careful not to repeat that mistake, since it was a huge embarrassment for him.
I don't see how it was an embarrassment. Even being wrong, having a good discussion is all right.
That's not what Evolution Pulse wants to do.
People never admit they're wrong. Okay,
he didn't admit he was wrong, but he was embarrassed because he spent a lot of time trying to claim that falsifiability was not a significant issue in science, right? That in fact it wasn't even possible. And then he conceded that it would be very easy to falsify the Christian God by discovering the body of Jesus in Nazareth. And it was pointed out that he contradicted himself. He left the hangout.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, who the fuck made this page that I'm sharing? Just to kind of move the conversation to the side.
Guys, see, there's obsessive compulsion here.
I really want to say, you know what, maybe this is some wood trolling as Darwin's, you know.
There
That's hilarious.
There are people that I disagree with, but there are problems going on here.
Well,
I have
more funny than anything else. Like, you know, if he would actually engage with us, we probably wouldn't even be as hostile as we are. Right.
No.
But the thing is, he makes up excuses.
I think you guys are beyond that point.
Bad people. Huh?
I think you guys are beyond that point.
Well, I don't know about that. I kind of have to equate it to my relationship with G-Man, Veckel, and Arcane. All four of us have had civil conversation before, and I've told them that I have no problem with them. With their arguments, when they start being assholes, that's when I have a problem with them. My main problem with Darwin's Deity, I have no problem saying it. He is a bully, and I despise bullies with every fiber of my being. And that,
Well, that's why we go after him.
And so
That's
it's
why we go after
it's not just me. I know bullies' behavior. I've spent the majority of my adolescence being bullied. That's why I despise them. And so when I see someone else being bullied, that
we
pisses
go
me off.
after him.
So
yeah,
I mean,
because there's plenty of people who have views as dumb as Darwin's deities, but we don't go after them. The reason why we go after Darwin's deity is because he's a bully. He's basically a thug.
Yeah, I mean, I know he wouldn't say this kind of stuff in person, though.
Oh yeah.
I mean, what's interesting from my point of view, I went into one of his hangs recently, and I think Dex was in there, and we had a really, really good conversation. There was none of the nastiness. And then the next time that we actually saw him was on one of the usual hangouts, and he'd gone back to his usual self. I'm wondering whether there's a bit of schizophrenia here, that in certain hangouts he takes on a persona where he feels he has to do this, that, or the other, and in other ones, or maybe he just hasn't been drinking that day. I don't know.
All the conversations that I've had with Darwin's one-on-one were cordial. They may have been frustrating because we were always putting heads, and I disagree with him. But I think I've never really had a problem with that. Now, in terms of the bullying factor, I think that people have the option to actually engage with him or not. I think that.
But I think Dex, I think that you would. I think you would concede.
So you're breaking up, Jack. One thing I do wish that he would do is maybe try to sort of try to aim to belittle people less, and actually try to educate those who are who know less than him more, because it seems that just the way he of his speaking, he's always trying to get the gotcha on people. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I think it's some type of projection, really. It's just he feels inferior, so he has to make someone else feel inferior.
Yeah,
but make up for his. But I definitely agree with you, and that's something that I think I could work on as well. So that some of the heat's taken off of Darwin. That's something that I kind of need to get away from.
Yeah, exactly, and that's sort of when you guys are with him, like Jack and Phil and all, you guys project the same thing, right? You wanna get him too, and that's what sort of kills the discussion.
If you weren't an obnoxious cunt, treat him badly.
Tell us how you really feel, Nihilist. Oh, jeez. Well,
Well, that's not true. I might. It depends.
I don't know. There are worse people to talk to. I got my protractor here, see? Oh, jeez.
Yeah, well, we should go over. He was repeating the actual Infinity stuff in his room today. I think he was talking to Palm, and he was just running the same arguments, that he always runs. But of course, as I laid out, there's a place you can take the objections to where he has no answer. And so, you know, all he has to do is try to obstruct you from getting to that point.
X, what is the theistic position that's reached if you apply the principle of sufficient reason and end up with modal collapse?
It's called necessitarianism.
Necessitarianism.
Well, that's not a theological term. That's just a term for anybody who thinks there's only one possible world.
Okay.
But I think there are some. I don't know if there's a theological name for that position. But you don't have to be a theist to have a view like that.
Okay.
But he doesn't have that view.
Who is Alexa Burton?
Is what?
Jack, who is Alexa Burton that Miguel was talking to?
Oh, some extremely hot girl that was like high on drugs.
Go on.
Was this a rave? What?
No, they were talking on a text message or something. But she was just saying very bizarre things because she was so high.
No.
You know what's funny, Jack, is that I think EF also craves camaraderie, atheists.
Camaraderie?
Yeah, I think because you can see him behave, you can see him joking around with other atheists. As long as he thinks he can defeat them, he wants to be like pals with them.
Oh yeah, like when I first met him, he knew I was an atheist, and he tried to befriend me. And he did that. And with you, right? So he wants to try to get like reasonable people on his side to help defend him.
I was friends with EF.
Yeah, but also to help them, you know, sort of neutralize their opposition. You know, so he thought that by being friendly to me, I wouldn't make a fool of him on Paltalk. That I wasn't going to let him get away with running dumb arguments. You know?
Right.
I mean, I wasn't nasty about it. I just kept saying, you know, you're not answering the objection. And eventually, you know, that got to be too much for him. So
Did he start to personally attack you then?
Yeah, exactly. That was when it started.
He went after a couple people on Paltalk personally. Like, what was that, San Rafael?
Yeah, although that was a case where you could argue that San Rafael brought it on. So, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, the funny thing is, well, he didn't really try that hard to befriend me. Like, the first time I came on Paltalk, he was, he wasn't too mean. But, of course, when I started asking him questions that he couldn't, like the logical problem of evil, the funny thing is that that's the argument I know the most about. And so it was just ridiculous when he called me a sock puppet for Jack. But, of course, as soon as that started happening, you know, he stopped answering my questions. Fuck.
Oh, that's what he calls me, is the sock puppet.
Yeah,
By the way,
okay.
Godless, I was really impressed with your conversation with Gus.
About free will or Islam?
Free will. Actually, Islam too. And the one that happened later with sort of in my room with Dragnot, that was not too bad.
Well, we should have a one-on-one conversation sometime about Islam.
Did you shut Gus down?
Of course. I got him with I even got Gus originally with my epistemic trolling.
Can never tell when you're trolling or not.
No, the epistemic stuff was trolling, but that was trolling, but not the other two things.
Yeah, on free will?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I seriously don't agree with targeting individual Muslims who are just out, just doing nothing. But the general stuff that you were talking about, Godless, about the religion itself and what's in the Quran, there are some really worrying things that are within there. Interestingly, though, if you take the religious view that it doesn't matter what human beings think, and if you're a theist, you should be following the laws that are in your scriptures, and the only way to actually get into heaven is by following those laws, then that suggests possibly only about 1% of Christians will ever end up in heaven. So if anybody religious really wants to get to heaven, it's probably better for them to take on the Quran and Islam, because everybody's saved as long as you follow their laws, and that's really concerning.
Jack, that conversation with the pre-suppers.
That conversation with the pre-suppers, what?
It's at 9,000 views.
9,000?
Oh, damn.
Can I have a link?
I thought you saw it.
Yeah, you've seen it.
Wait, the old one?
Yeah.
Oh, presuppositionalism, like you've never seen it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I see that.
I'm going to have to look and see if there are new comments. By the way, Dex, actually, Godless did something more impressive than her free will discussion yesterday, which was she ran the objection, the Pandora's box objection to skeptical theism, like pretty flawlessly. Who was it to? Dutch David?
Okay.
Oh, MK and Dutch David, yeah. So if you want to see her at her peak of her powers, I think that was some of the best debating I've seen her do.
Was that an MK's?
really?
Was that an
That was an
MK's
MK.
discussion?
Yeah, yesterday. Right? It was yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what
I think
I asked
she was
Ray
at
for
her
something
most impressive there.
easy to learn, and he gave me the Stephen Law lectures.
Yeah, that's a very good lecture. Oh, I see we ran Darwin's deity out.
Yeah, he left a while ago.
Hey, so
You should keep your eye on Ludix and Nadia's hangouts in case he tries to go in there, or if MK ends up.
hey, Jack. So I wanted to ask some questions about the analysis of the word literal, when we talk about literal interpretation.
Yep.
So it seems to me that there's a bit of confusion about what the analysis is supposed to be, because what I take literal to mean upon analysis is the intentions of the author. And the reason I take it to mean that is because if you're just going with, let's say we're going with the analysis of the majority of the use of a particular word as collected by the dictionary or something like that, the reason I think that fails is because the word literal has a dual meaning, and it's also hyperbolic, and it also means something like figurative. So if I said I was literally losing my mind, it's actually it's the same thing as saying I was figuratively losing my mind, because there's dictionary entries, history, it's gone back like for I don't know how many years, a couple hundred of years, where people have used literally not mean a particular word now. So I think when people they're saying the literal interpretation is what the intentions of the author are, right? So as long as anybody agrees that what they're doing when they're interpreting is looking for the intentions of the author, always going to prefer the literal interpretation, because on that analysis they're the same thing.
Wait, I'm not. I had some problems hearing what you said.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to. I don't know if you want to repeat it because it seems like you said a lot. But.
Yeah. Well, there are a few analyses of literal interpretation, and so what I took the sort of prima facie analysis of literal interpretation to be is like the most common usages of words. Do we agree about that?
Well, most common usages. I'm not sure that's exactly right. See, you want. I think the idea is that there's going to be a distinction between sentence meaning and speaker meaning, something like that. We're probably going to get interrupted because my train is arriving. So, see, like the way an indirect speech act works is by having the speaker meaning be different from the sentence meaning, right? Because if I say the train is about to leave, right, that's formally that's in the indicative mood, right, in English. But it's actually can be spoken as a disguised command, right? So I can use, yeah. So I think when we're talking about literal meaning, we're going to be talking about sort of like something like kind of like the we're going to be talking about
Fuck.
Hey guys.
They're probably going to get disconnected.
I gotta run.
All right. See you later.
All right. Thanks for coming. I'll catch you guys later.